Hi, friends. Welcome back to Chapter 2 Reclaim, Rebuild, Rewrite. I'm Amy, and this is the space where we explore what comes after life altering experiences like cancer, trauma, or the ending of a chapter you didn't plan for. Today, I want to talk about something that can feel both exciting and terrifying. The future you can't see yet. That blurry, uncertain, sometimes intimidating stretch of life that comes after survival, after trauma, after loss. It's normal to want clarity, to want the road ahead to be smooth and predictable. But what I've learned through my own journey and through listening to so many women rebuild their lives is that healing and growth often happen before the future makes sense. Have you ever felt this invisible pressure to get back to normal or move on after something life-changing? Society, well-meaning friends, even our own inner critic can make it feel like we should be bouncing back, smiling, planning, and living a shiny, perfect version of life again. I remember after my own health crisis, people would ask, "So, what's next for you?" And I'd freeze. I didn't know what next looked like. Some days, I didn't even know what today looked like. And I felt guilty for that. Like somehow I was failing because I didn't have a clear plan for the future. I was wasting the second chance that I was given. But here's the truth. The future isn't a finish line. It's not a destination you arrive at fully formed. It's more like a garden that grows slowly, season by season. Some plants sprouting immediately, others taking years to appear. And just like in a garden, there will be days when it feels like nothing is happening at all. Some days you might feel like you're taking one step forward and two steps back. And that's normal. That's healing. That's life. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you want. And just notice, where in your life have you felt the pressure to move on before you are ready? Acknowledge it without judgment. Sometimes simply naming the pressure lifts part of it. Sometimes it's enough to say to yourself, I don't need to have the answers today. One of the most important things I want to remind you today is that healing is not linear. You've heard me say it before because it's true. Some days you'll feel strong, capable, even excited about what's ahead, while other days you might feel fragile, sad, or completely stuck. Both of these experiences are part of the same journey, and both of these are necessary. I want to share a personal story here. There was a period after my recovery when I had rebuilt so much. My routines, my support system, even my outlook on life had changed. And then one afternoon, out of nowhere, I cried for hours straight. It wasn't triggered by anything huge. It was just the accumulation of everything I had experienced. The fear, the loss, the fatigue, all of the things I had survived. At first, I felt frustrated. I thought I was past this, I told myself. But then I realized this is what healing looks like. It isn't a straight path. You revisit old feelings, old fears, old wounds, and each time you meet them with a little more grace, a little more understanding, and a lot more strength. I invite you to think about a recent week in your life. Can you identify moments of progress, even small ones, that you might have overlooked? Maybe it was saying no to something you didn't have energy for. Maybe it was laughing with someone you love. Maybe it was just making it through the day. Every small step counts. Every quiet act of courage counts. Here's another important truth. Moving forward doesn't always mean being positive. In fact, sometimes trying to force yourself to be happy or grateful can block real healing. It's okay and necessary to acknowledge the pain, the fear, the grief, and the anger. These emotions are part of your story. They're signposts telling you where you've been, what you've survived, and what still needs care. I remember one morning when I forced myself to put on a smile and act normal at work. By lunchtime, I was exhausted, and I realized that pretending everything was okay was actually slowing my healing. The next day, I allowed myself to acknowledge how raw I felt. I didn't need to fix it. I didn't need to hide it. And that simple act of permission to be real was transformative. Forward movement is about showing up any way you can. It's about finding a way to keep going, even when you feel broken. And this might surprise you. Sometimes showing up looks like resting. Sometimes it looks like crying. Sometimes it looks like choosing the simplest act of self care, cooking a meal, going for a walk, journaling, reaching out for support, or even just taking a shower. So, how do we navigate a future we can't see yet? The secret, if there is one, is small steps. Small, consistent, intentional actions build momentum over time, and they can feel almost invisible until you look back and realize how far you've come. Small steps can be saying yes to a new experience, even if it scares you. Setting a boundary that protects your energy. Journaling for 5 minutes every day. Allowing yourself to rest without guilt. And simply acknowledging your emotions without judgment. I have to often remind myself that even small steps are still steps. They're proof that you're moving forward, even when it feels like nothing is happening. I want to give you a little exercise you can do right now. Take out a piece of paper or your journal. Write down 3 small steps you could take this week that would support your healing or your vision for the future. Don't overthink it. They don't need to be big or dramatic, just things that move you forward gently. Even naming them is powerful. Writing them down sends a signal to your mind and body that you're moving forward, even in uncertainty. Another thing to remember is that the future you envision now might not be the future that actually unfolds, and that's okay. Life is unpredictable, especially after trauma. Flexibility is going to be your superpower. Being able to adjust, adapt, and pivot when life throws curveballs is a sign of strength, not weakness. The people who thrive after trauma aren't the ones who stick to the plan. They're the ones who allow themselves to grow in ways they didn't expect. Sometimes in directions they couldn't have imagined for themselves. When I was recovering, I had this very specific vision of what my life should look like. I imagined a rigid timeline for projects, for routines, for getting back to normal. And then reality hit in ways I couldn't control. I had to let go of those timelines and learn to trust a slower, messier, but deeply meaningful process. I want you to start imagining your future, even if it's blurry. Not as a fixed destination, but as a garden you're tending. You don't need to have the full map. You just need to be willing to plant the seeds, water them, and care for yourself along the way. Let's take a minute to pause and reflect. What does the future mean to you right now? How can you honor where you are today while taking one small step forward? What's one gentle practice you can do this week to remind yourself that healing is happening, even when it doesn't feel like it? Here's a simple framework I often use for myself. Notice. Acknowledge where you are emotionally and physically. Act. Take one intentional small step forward. Reflect. Celebrate that step, even if it seems minor. Repeat. You'll revisit old feelings, and that's part of progress too. Remember, there's no timeline, no finish line, no standard for what moving forward should look like. There's only the courage to keep choosing yourself. Before we close today, I want to leave you with this. Your future may be uncertain, and that's okay for now. You don't need to have it all figured out. Healing doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require constant positivity. It requires showing up for yourself in the small ways and the quiet moments, day after day. Even if it's a tiny step, even if it's just a pause to breathe, even if it's one act of self-compassion, it all counts. That's progress. That's forward movement. So take a deep breath. Look at the next step you can take, no matter how small, and trust yourself to take it. The future doesn't need to be clear for you to move toward it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it with a friend who might need to hear it too. And if you're ready to keep writing your next chapter, I've created a free mini guide to self-reflection. It's a gentle companion to help you slow down, check in with yourself, and begin exploring what's next. You can get your copy by signing up for my mailing list at chapter2podcast.com. When you do, you'll also get new episodes, writing prompts, and healing-centered reflections sent straight to your inbox. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes where we explore life, healing, and the courage it takes to write your second chapter. From my heart to yours, never forget, you are enough.